Hello, everyone. This is W, host of Surprise Cast. I've often told my friends that I've always wanted to visit Sheffield, England. Why? Because it's home to some of my favorite musicians, including Pulp and Richard Hawley. This outdoor city looks like a fabulous place to take in beautiful walks, enjoy some pub visits, and take in the nightlife. Here to confirm my opinions on Sheffield, England, and then some, are Marcus and Chris from the indie pop band, the Suncharms. They're also here to talk about life, music, and a brand new dreamy album called Darkening Sky. Let us welcome them to the studio. Hello, Chris. How are you doing? And tell us what you do in the band.
Hi, W. I'm Chris, and I play drums for the Suncharms.
Thank you. Marcus.
I'm the singer, sometimes tambourine rattler, and the singer most of the time.
Nice to have you both on Surprise Cast. Let's get started. Chris, could you do us a favor and tell us an extraordinary story, something unique that involves music?
Okay, my dad was and still is a drummer, and he does gigs regularly. He plays in a band with about 20 guitarists, and he's the drummer. And the guy who runs the band is the brother of Paul Carrack from Mike and the Mechanics.
That's a hell of a story.
Well, there's a few stories with my dad. You know, there's a few connections with him via other Sheffield legends, but I'll let Marcus jump in.
Yes. Well, on a similar note, regards to what is often called the Sheffield Village, where even though it's a fourth largest city in the UK, you still tend to bump into lots of pop stars wandering around. I mean, just for instance, a few weeks back in a park, Cliff Park, in the cafe was the Pulp drummer was sat just having a drink in the cafe, and he'd just been, I think, was it the Brittle was or some big TV thing the night before, but it was just in the local cafe. And then right up to a couple of days ago, I picked up my daughter from a concert where some of her friends were in it, and Richard Hawley was in the audience on the next couple of seats watching, I believe, his daughter in the same concert. Yeah, and then a lot of the time you're walking on what's called Exeter Road, and you'll see Phil Oakley from the Human League wandering up. Yes, it's like Sheffield celebrity.
You do see people.
Yeah.
So, when you saw Sir Richard Hawley, you've seen him before in town?
Yes, yeah, plenty of times, yeah.
So does it still give you that kind of goosey feeling, those butterflies a little bit, that feeling of excitement?
No, because we're just used to seeing him because he was in various other bands, such as a Tree Bound Story, which, you know, they were contemporaries of ours in like the early 90s. So, yeah, it doesn't feel like a pop star up there. It's just a face around Sheffield.
This is what I love about this question. I've been learning and hearing so many wonderful, fantastic stories. So way to keep it going, both of you. Thank you. Speaking of Sheffield, I got a question. I'm going to actually start off with a quote here. And it's actually by Richard Hawley. And he says this: "On the city's natural beauty, the thing I like about Sheffield is I love the trees. I love the parks. I love the Peak District. I love the fact that it's the greenest city. Plus, the people's resilience and sense of humor is what makes me stay." Chris, would you like to speak to this?
I think that there are lots of cliches about Sheffield being the biggest village in the world. And as what Marcus said about bumping into people, I've seen Jarvis Cocker live, but I've seen him twice in person. And once was about the time we were releasing things, and Pulp were quite quiet, and I was walking from my rented house up the road, and I saw this guy, and it looked like he'd been was like a time slip from like 1974. This was 1990, and there was a guy in like crimpling check trousers and the huge, what I call bank manager glasses, and he was washing a Hillman Imp car, which is like a classic 1970s, really quirky 70s, like mini type car. And he was washing it, and I was like walking up, looking at this guy, going, "Yeah." I knew it was Jarvis Cocker, but it was like to see him in the flesh, but. It looked like he was going to be they were going to photograph him for the front of an album. But I think there's that element that, we've seen famous people, but none of them really have taken it to the head, gone to the heads. So it's about they're very grounded and down to earth. A couple of weeks ago, I went to see my local football team, Sheffield Wednesday, and Sheffield Wednesday's had a difficult time. And went 2 seats, there were 2 people next to me, and the third person was Martin Ware from Human League.
Oh, wow.
He's a big Sheffield Wednesday fan, and I was sat there. He was shouting things, and it was amazing for me to be. I've been a fan of Human League and Heaven 17 for 40 odd years, and to be sat next to him, we were both watching the same team. And afterwards, I went and spoke to him about the most recent gig I'd seen of. They were doing all the Human League stuff, and it was really genuinely grateful that I'd gone to see him and just said, I really liked. It was a brilliant gig. I'd love to see it. It's one of the best gigs I've ever been to, and he was genuinely touched. And he's a guy who's like, for 40 years, for nearly 50 years, he's been the cutting edge of electronic music and produced Tina Turner. But he was just happy to be there. He wasn't looking for anyone. He wasn't looking to be centre of attention. He was a fan of Sheffield Wednesday, watching the game with me and 30,000 other people.
So Marcus, if I'm hearing this correctly from Chris, is that he's saying that yes, you have some celebrities in town, but for the most part, people just keep to themselves. It's pretty low key. It's good community, good vibe. Tell us more.
Yeah, I think with a lot of Sheffield people, that if somebody was being a bit too, high and mighty, and they'd be cut down straight away. Like, they would be like, yeah, they won't be sycophants all around and be like, look at him, who does he think he is? Like, yeah, it'd be cut down straight away. So I don't think it's in the sort of Sheffield psyche as a whole to like be really sort of seeing people as completely different, like godlike status, really.
About this notion of this romantic feeling, this romantic ambiance. Is that there?
It will. Marcus is the lyricist, and he's always one for. I'll let Marcus speak more about it, but finding beauty in everyday life. It is. We have got far more trees than people in Sheffield. There are lots and lots of trees, and when the council tried to cut some of the old trees down, there were people protesting, people climbing, living in trees to stop it happening.
There's a mad because the whole of Sheffield is as Chris said, covered in trees, and the council decided local authority decided to sort of cut them down rather than because they were basically the roots were taking up the tarmac and the paths and the roads, so they thought, well, we'll just start just cutting them down rather than sort of like pruning them back, and that just caused such like massive protest where there was like ribbons tied around all the trees and like love letters attached to trees and like people, gangs of people. Basically, the people won because the council backed down. And I don't know if there's supposed to be a film about it, or there is being a film about it or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think another thing about it as well is because Sheffield, it's supposedly built on 7 hills like Rome, and it's a bit of a myth, but it's built. Wherever you walk to in Sheffield is always uphill, which is, wherever you're going, it's uphill, and everyone in Sheffield's got really good thighs because of it. But there are lots of places where you can view the city from on high, and wherever you look at look at a place on high, there's a certain romance, to quote the Arctic Monkeys.
Because I think as well because there's so many hills, you don't get that claustrophobic feeling because you're always looking down on something. Whereas, so if I go to London, I just don't like it. Even though London's a lot bigger than Sheffield, I feel closed in. I feel like I can just see as far as the hand in front of my face. I feel more trapped and enclosed in somewhere like London. Whereas Sheffield, you're always you're going up a hill and looking over things, and there's over distance in front of you. So maybe that's where some of the romanticism comes from.
How's the economy been? How has growth and development?
I mean, the Sheffield city centre is from going from just full of boarded up old steelworks, and there's been massive regeneration in the sort of city centre. I mean, there was a place called Meadow Hall, which basically nearly killed it. It was like an outer city inside shopping mall type thing, and it basically just destroyed the soul of the centre of Sheffield. All shops closed down just about, and it's starting to come back and build up again now. There's been a bit of a regeneration. It's slowly building back.
I would say it's a place in England that, I mean, people are aware of it, but I feel like places like Manchester, Liverpool, I feel like the spotlight gets shined on those cities a bit more, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, there was all the Manchester
Right.
time, Dough Roses, Happy Monday, and Spiral Carpets, and all the rave culture that came, Hacienda in Manchester, and obviously Liverpool with the Beatles. But yeah, it does feel like, that Sheffield hasn't had the same sort of hype as those two in the mainstream media anyway.
Okay, let us move the dial one notch over. I want to read you a quote. This is from the very famous poet, if you will, Maya Angelou. And she says this: "You can't go back home to your childhood, but you can carry it with you." Marcus, I'm going to toss that one over to you. Whatever comes to mind in relation to that quote, go for it.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of our tracks on the first album, Casting Shadows, was very much about that. Was sort of like revisiting the Bluebell Wood, which was at the top of my road, and it was such a magical place where, as the name was, Bluebell Wood, it was full of bluebells, and we used to say there was this like a Jack and the Beanstalk type tree with all the roots, and just those memories of sort of climbing up those roots, and then having fires and making dams in that wood. And I returned sort of just last year, and nothing had changed in the wood at all. But the most unbelievable thing happened was that as I was walking through the wood, I had a flashback of going back 40 years of me and my friend, this lad called Paul Cooper, him taking a chisel and a hammer into the wood, and there was a rock, and we put our initials in it, like PT and MP. And I thought to myself, I wonder if those initials are still there. And basically, I found the rock from 40 years prior, and covered in leaf and moss. I just moved the moss and stuff away, and our initials were still there. And it was a real goosebump, sort of like, oh my God. And I traced my initial and his initial with my finger, and it was still there. They grew, and I thought, I did that when I was 10 years old, and I'm touching that exact point from 40 odd years ago. And that was a magical full circle back to my childhood.
Do you have a picture of that?
I have got a photo, yeah. I've got it up somewhere on my phone somewhere. So I did take a photo of it as well, because I just couldn't believe I was seeing it, to send to Paul Cooper, who was my childhood friend, who since moved he now lives in New Zealand.
That just gave me goosebumps. Oh man, that is good stuff. Now, in terms of your childhood, other than that incredible experience, was it pretty magical, or was it stressful? Was it a little bit of both?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, so I went to comprehensive schools, so it was bang next to a council estate. So it was a little bit rough, but not excessively rough, sort of state school. But it was very much, as people always talk about before, like the social media and the internet, it was very, very much as spending the whole day, and, in the weekends and holidays, just outside, in the woods or up on the moors or playing football. It's a bit of a cliche, but you'd go home when the street lights came on.
Yes.
And that was the time to go home when you saw the lights coming on the street. It was time to go home for your tea. I've got magical fun, nostalgic fond memories of it. Yeah, very much so.
Now, you had mentioned you are a father, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, both of you are, yeah?
Yes.
So is that something you try to instill into your own children in terms of less screen time? go play, go outside, go explore.
Yes, I mean, very much so. But, so I've got two daughters, Evie and Hattie, 15 and 12, two girls. And it's an ongoing fight. But again, I say this morning, I could be a complete hypocrite about it as well, because I can be looking at them two on the screens. I realise I'm on a screen as well. And all three of them are just scrolling. And I'll look up and say, look at us, phone zombies. Look at us, girls. 3 phone zombies here. And then we'll all look up at each other and then we'll go back to it. And I'm like, bloody hell, what?
So you're honest.
Yeah. So I do where I can is that we all go out and, we'll go out to the hills and try to go for a walk.
From my childhood, looking up, taking flight, the moon shining arise, looking up, taking flight, the moon shining arise.
So, Chris, tell us a bit about when music grabbed hold of you, and in terms of like either it could be you picked up an instrument, it could be an album, it could be maybe you heard a song on the radio and you just sat there and go, "What the fuck is that?"
I think there's been, I can point to about 3 or 4 occasions. I remember one occasion was probably the first one I can think of, is we'd gone round to my grandparents' house and it was a Thursday night, and Thursday night in Britain for about 30 years meant Top of the Pops, which is a legendary programme. Top of the Pops was a mark of someone's success. And I was about 5 and David Bowie re-released Space Oddity. So I was watching the film or video for Space Oddity, and I couldn't understand how he was doing my dad's song, because I'd watched my dad perform Space Oddity, and my dad at that time used to drum and sing at the same time. And it was like, I remember walking home, and it's a beautiful starry night, and walking home, how has he done? He's done my dad's song. So that was it. That was it. I was growing up watching my dad transform from, he came home from work and he was a carpenter, joiner carpenter. And he used to come home from work with these jeans that had, they're very collectible now, but worn jeans, boots on, and he'd have sawdust in his hair and a big woolen jacket. They used to go upstairs, and then he'd come down and he'd been showered and shaved, and then he'd be going out, and his band would wear things like, they'd have like matching baseball jackets and white jeans. Or at one point they had these jumpsuits that were black with gold on them. And there was this person who used to come in, and it was 2 different guys. It was the worker, and then he transformed into this rock star. So, and I was allowed to carry out his little tom-tom. So he'd have quite a big kit, and I used to carry one out that was like only the ones that my dad and Neil Peart would have in Rush. Do you know?
Yeah.
At the end of I used to do that. So I think those things, and then goosebump moments like Donna Summer's "I Feel Love." It's the first song that ever, it had the hairs up on the back of my neck, and that's been, if I did a top 10 from 1977 to now, she would have been in every single top 10 with "I Feel Love" from then to now.
Really?
And it's still goosebump, gives me the goosebumps, that song. And I've seen Giorgio Moroder do it live, which was one of my all-time musical moments, to see him live, to see him do "I Feel Love" and talk through and build the song. It was like, that was goosebumps.
So what is it about that song gives you the goosebumps, gives you those feels?
It's interesting because it's that is it Gestalt psychology, where the whole is more than the sum of its parts?
Yeah.
Because it's not even got really drums on it. It's got syncopated bass line, and it's just that I think it's the overall. I mean, I think there's some, I can't remember, a ridiculously small number of words in it lyrically. It's things repeated 5 times. Her voice is. She was making people cry with the singing when she was at Sunday school, wasn't she? In gospel choir, I think the first time Donna Summer sang, there was people crying. And I can imagine that myself. And I think it's her voice, she takes it. It's something, it was supposed to, on that album, there was a decade for each song. And that was supposed to be the love song for the future.
Yeah.
And when you get David Bowie's He's Next Door and the recording, he comes in and goes, I've just heard the future of music for the next 30 years, and bang on the money. So for me, I love that electronic music, but for me, it's just something. It's ever ascending. It takes you up. By the end of that song, you're 8 miles high.
Marcus, have you seen the movie Chaplin with Robert Downey Jr.?
I've heard about it. I've not seen it.
Okay, there's a great scene, and I'll get to my question here. There's a great scene in the movie where Chaplin goes into this store and he sees the famous iconic bowler hat. He sees the cane. He sees the big exaggerated shoes. And the way they shot it was he took his hand out and the cane moved across the room and the hat just slid down his arm. Obviously a very poignant, magical moment for Chaplin, because that's when he realized, oh my God, with these props, if you will, I've now become almost the tramp, the little tramp. So my question for you is, what was that magical like, and that feeling picking up an instrument for the first time? Do you remember that?
Well, with me, I only really had any interest in lyrics and the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very, very much vocal driven, where Ricky was now the bass player. We were sort of fanatical about sort of like obviously music and buying records and making each other compilation tapes. And it was very, very much sort of going around to each other's houses, and his parents downstairs, and going in and hiding away in the bedrooms as we listened to music and jumped around together to tracks. And then it was like, let's form a band of self. And it was very much Richard saying, "Oh, I'll be the bass player," and me saying, "I'll be the singer." And it was very much that, and just starting to write little songs together to start with. That's where it started at sort of 16. So yeah, so it really just from an idea of just me and my friend saying, why don't we form a band? And I just sat on his bed, and he went into his brother's room, and his brother had an acoustic guitar just with one string, and he started plucking away at that, having no idea. And I just sort of sung over the top of what he was plucking, and just wrote whatever came into my head lyric wise.
Now, speaking of singers and their obviously amazing voices, who was capturing your attention at that age?
I always loved the Byrds.
Yeah.
Always, was a big and still I'm a big fan of lots of 60s psychedelic stuff, but also the Pastels, some of those Sarah Records, C86 stuff was all being sort of played in our bedroom. McCarthy was very much what we both tended to play that a lot. Talking about sort of hearing something for the first time, I was just thinking when you have that question asking that, Chris, for me, my awakening, both as in giving you a superpower, and giving you that's how it felt, was like when I first heard the Dead Kennedys when I was like 15, 16 years old. Not only was it the music, it was the lyrics, and it was like a political awakening. It was almost like a light bulb went on. But the only problem was it felt like I couldn't speak to any adults because it almost made me not want to speak to adults because of what they'd done to the world.
Yeah.
So, and I remember like listening to the Kennedys, particularly when talking about it giving me an absolute superpower. I'd have me Sony Walkman on with the dead Kennedys on, and I used to catch the last bus, the 12 o'clock bus at my first girlfriend's house. But I used to leave her house at 11:45, but it was quite literally about 2 miles, all downhill to get there late at night. But I knew that if I put the dead Kennedys on my headphones, I'd fly. Because especially when Rocking Vegetables was on, I'd feel I wouldn't feel out of breath. I'd almost feel like I'd close my eyes and I was like floating in a sort of like rage, but like with a pure, beautiful rage of like, like listening to like, the Dead Kennedys. And I remember this one time just running it, but just touching midnight, on a cold winter's night, running through sort of like Sheffield and flashing blue lights behind me. And it was almost like a scene from like, what Jalabaca would say about, look, the police state, and all these flashing blue lights were behind me. And like these policemen, "Oi, stop!" And I had to take my headphones off and turn round. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I didn't have I was running for running's joy because I was 16. But they're not going to believe me. And I said, "What are you doing? What are you running for?" And I was like, "Because I want to run." And they went, "Don't." And then off the police car went, and I put my headphones back on. It's true. Everything Jelly Baffra's telling me is true. The police are telling me I can't even run now. And Andy got the last bus as well, so I carried on with the rest of the album on the back of the empty bus back to Deep Car. Where I was from. But yeah,
you are the first person who has mentioned the importance of the Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, Alternative Tentacles and all those the bands. There was massive influence on me as a teenager, not just musically.
So, Chris, remind me, and for people listening to this conversation, tell us your friendship with Marcus.
Well, it's I think the band we're in now started in parallel. So while Marcus and Rich were in one side of Sheffield, collaborating in the evenings, listening to music, myself and Matt, the guitarist and songwriter and producer of the Suncharms, we were doing something similar, and we got together during we were friends, but it was during one lesson, and he walked over to where I sat in the lesson, and he said something like, "Shall we form a band?" So yeah, okay, and he said, "All right, then I'll play guitar, and are you?" And I said, "Well, I'll play drums then." And so we arranged to, the day after we finished our exams when we were 16, we arranged to meet up, and there were some other lads, and about 6 of us met up together. We stayed together for about 6 weeks until we went our separate ways. And I've always been in a band with Matt. So me and Matt have always been in the bands. He went away to college and he met Richard, and it was one day, Matt had asked me several times to be their drummer, and I'd refused. My late wife at the time said to me, we were about 19. She said, "I had a dream that Matt's band became famous." And we were out on a walk, and I came straight back and phoned Matt up and said, "I want to be in that band." He came, and so a couple of days later, Marcus and Richard came to my house, and Marcus had got an old 1960s car, wasn't it, Marcus? Tallulah. Yeah. Marcus came and Richard, and my drums were all packed up in the hall. We put them in the back of Marcus's car, and we all drove out to Marcus's garage in Deep Car, and they'd been rehearsing for a few weeks, and I just said, I felt I was auditioning. Marcus said I wasn't. I thought I was. And I said, "You play what you do." So they played, and I just played drums to what they were doing.
Well, we had a drum machine before, so we had a real life talking drum machine.
But I always remember from that, what I always remember about Marcus the first time I ever met him, his positivity about, I played drums in bands before and people been okay. Marcus was like, this is amazing. This is live drums. And Marcus has always been incredibly positive about my drumming, but everyone else's contributions to the band. And Marcus has got so much enthusiasm and fantastic, absolutely fantastic, witty. He's an Oscar Wilde character. So he always manages to make us laugh one way or another with his take on life. So I think that's what I'd say for Marcus.
So,
very, very kind of you, Chris. Very kind.
Marcus, those are very nice complimentary words. You want to go back memory lane here and kind of those early beginnings?
Even in the wilderness years, where obviously the band had split up in 1993, me and Chris still meet up, and we used to have it still exists, but we've not opened the doors for a while. There's something called the Curiosity Club, and it was as though we made this old pretend little, as though we had this like Victorian gentleman's club. So we'd meet up and like have a little whiskey, and all we needed was like a roaring fire, and we'd sort of like swap sort of like supernatural stories or freak show stories, or a bit of and we used to call it. Should we open this PC club in the Curiosity Club tonight? And we weren't dressed in Victorian gentleman's clothes, but
I think we would have done, wouldn't we? Top hat and a cape. We used to talk about things like Spring-Heeled Jack, stuff like that,
and giant squids, and anything a bit unusual. And called the Curiosity Club.
Man,
yeah, that kept us in contact, didn't it?
Yeah.
This is a silly question, but you guys know you have something pretty damn special, yeah, in terms of that friendship.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't take it for granted. And I think the five of us, the bottom line is we love doing the music, and we do it because we enjoy it. But it is a friendship where we are musical.
Yeah.
I know from other people in other bands how fortunate I am, because there's not an ego in the band. No one has to be center of attention, and no one wants to put themselves before anyone else. So there's no infighting or anything like that. We just all get on. We used to go to gigs and travel 5 hours there and 5 hours back and set up, and we just used to talk constantly all the way there.
Yeah, and then, five of the beast.
So, Marcus, what do you attribute that to? Because there are probably people listening to this conversation going, "Fuck, I wish I had that in my band or the people that I work with." What's in the secret sauce here? Humility?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's because we're all friends. That individual, like me and Richard were friends, and then obviously Matt and Chris were friends with, and also John, and it's sort of like just mutated into a fusion of us five. So it wasn't like we had to audition a stranger. So it was almost like they were friends who decided to be in bands rather than having to audition strangers to come to join.
Yeah,
because I often think that as well. Because obviously we went to separate ways in 1993, and I never thought, right, I need to like go and join another band, or I'm going to be a singer in another band, because the whole joy of it was the friendship as well as the music. Yeah, so I often think, say, like with Morrissey leaving the Smiths and then just joining, having random musicians coming in. For me, it's the joy of, say we get a good review, it's like sharing it with your friends that we've created it as a five, and like, have you seen this? Have you seen this nice feature on the album? And it's that joint joy of sharing it together, which you wouldn't get if you were a solo artist, or you wouldn't get if you were just with a group of individuals, like, or session musicians, or that's
But what I would say as well, Marcus, is if someone, not that it often happens, but if someone makes a comment about the drums, you'll be the first person to say, look what someone has said about the drums, or look what, me and you might say, look to Rich, someone's mentioned how your bass lines complement what's going on. So it's people continually, genuinely acknowledging what other people have brought.
Yes. God, that is so key in any organization, right? It's being aware of other people's strengths and being constructive with the criticism. Yeah.
Yeah. I think no one's ever cruel to anyone else. There are always occasions when I'm recording drums when Matt will say, "Oh, can you maybe do that one again?" And when we're recording, me and Marcus might say to Matt on a Thursday evening, Or, maybe that guitar, if it could go higher in the mix or something, or could you continue doing what you've done? So there's never any need for I'd say everyone's self-aware enough to not have to be, no one has to get very direct, or there aren't any awkward conversations, put it that way.
Yeah, I feel we're very much as a one. So if one of the band gets, singled out with a compliment, I always forget that it's not me who's done that guitar solo, because I take it as the band's getting that compliment. It's like as a one. If I read a review about a guitar solo or something, or how that guitar sounds, I almost take it as though I've done the guitar side. As though
Yes.
you don't feel like a separation between, as it's
Right.
like compliments for all the band, not just for that person who laid that particular track down somehow. It's sort of like the five-headed beast.
Shall we talk about this new album?
Yeah.
Sheltered in an airy shelter sometime in the 90s. You smell of piss and daisies. You told me you were born with your feet facing the wrong way. And by the way, your lover is still at home. And
I'm going to read a little review here, and then I'm going to read to you a quote by a gentleman. Name is Al Jurgensen from the band Ministry. So this is what Spill Magazine has to say about the album. Darkening Sky works best as an album rather than a collection of songs. It is not a concept album, but has a beautiful flow, and the sequencing of songs is one of the many charms of the album. Darkening Sky is a welcome return for this brilliant band. It has been 3 years since their last Things Lost, which in retrospect seems far too long to have waited. And this is Al Jurgensen's quote here. You don't sit around waiting for inspiration. You just start working, and the inspiration catches up with you. So, Chris, kick it off with the inspiration of Darkening Sky, yeah?
I think it was when we did the album before it, Things Lost, there were tracks on there that we didn't have ready or we weren't quite happy with. And although they didn't carry on into Darkening Sky, Matt's very prolific in pulling these melodies from the ether, however he does it, however songwriters do it, when you pull a song out of there. And I think of this album, of the three that we've done, the studio albums, this one felt the most organic of the three, because I think each track seemed to grow up, as they do, from the kind of kernel that Matt will put in there from the guitar, usually a rhythm guitar piece. And he'll do his demos are pretty full, aren't they, Marcus? We'll have to hear them and go, oh, we may as well just leave him to it. He'll not put vocals on, but they'll be pretty full demos. And I think they grew up organically, and then almost one track led to another. And we didn't consciously make an effort to say we want them all to sound. We weren't going for a sound. It was just each song individually. And then at the end of it, sometimes we would go back to songs we'd done earlier because where the direction we'd gone with earlier ones, and almost Matt would go back and reproduce in line, to not necessarily to tie things up, but just because, we like the way that sounds, so we'll go back and do that on another one. And then we do spend a lot of time, we do consciously always put the songs in a certain order. Yeah. We are very conscious about what opens it, what ends side one, what starts side two, developing a mood, calming things down. It's nice that it's really great that Al said that and he's noticed, but that is, we don't just go, right, I'll just put them in any old order. It's definitely not that, because it is a journey. That album needs to be a journey from the start to the end. How you wind that journey is massively as important as the songs themselves. Like Marcus, I've said enough, Marcus.
I think, yeah, I completely agree with what Chris is saying, but yeah, it's also just very much almost cinematic, almost like a film and a journey that I feel like you should get lost in the album, lost like almost like you're like a gateway to another world or another dimension, but still obviously grounded in we're all on planet Earth. But I think it should open that door to perhaps another place, that is very much what I hope we've achieved or what we aspire to. I think.
Well, you definitely did. But what I was going to compliment you in the band on is that the songs aren't entirely long. Yeah, right. But I feel as though, which I've always admired in music, when musicians are able to do this, there's space. There's space in between those notes. There's time to just not be pulverized and bombarded with all the instrumentation. And that's what I'm supposed to feel. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, in whether it be melodies, whether it be lyrics and all that, was there a conscious approach to this album in creating that space, that vibe? Or was it just like, let's see how these songs rest on their own and then we'll sequence them together?
I think it wasn't sort of like very sort of scientific. It was very sort of like organic. We just sort of went with the flow with it.
Yeah.
But I think what you say about the space, I think that's because I'll often, obviously Matt will say put together, the basics of a demo, and then we'll share it all amongst the band, and we'll all go away and think about where we can fit our bits in, and then we'll sort of meet up and start recording or and then it'll all sort of fit together, and to the point sometimes you don't recognize the original demo that Matt had sort of originally created. And Matt's not sort of so into dictate, will insist that it stays how he originally sent it. He's very much open to any ideas and what we contribute into the mix. And often the song is completely different from how it originally started, from Matt's idea. But regards to the spaces, I will often think, when Matt will play that first track, we work very much like, I suppose, how sort of Morrissey and Marr used to work, where sort of Marr would create like the music. And I remember I read a story about him dropping like a tape through Morrissey's letterbox, and then Morrissey just listened to the music, and then the next time they went to the studio, Morrissey had put on the melody on top and put his vocal melody within the spaces that Johnny Marr had created. And that's quite like how it works with the Suncharms, where they're like, I'll fit my vocals and melody amongst the spaces. So there is those spaces because I like that. Because I like the music so much as a fan, I know that some bands that you feel like, for God's sake, have a breath. Like the singer will be relentless throughout, and and once you're conscious of that singer has not given a gap in the song at all, it almost feels like you can't hear that song because you just think, God, I can't breathe listening to it. So I'm very much a fan of like the music, the textures, and the atmosphere, and then the vocals fit into those spaces, and they harmonize together.
That's the word I was looking for. And I feel like it was just a really nice continuation of Things Lost, this buildup of atmosphere. But again, it's not atmosphere that goes on for 6, 7, 8 minutes. So to do that in 2 to 3, 4 minutes, that's pretty impressive. Chris, do you want to share anything about were there any challenges in putting this album together? And if so, what were they?
I can give specific examples from my point of view as doing the drums. When we did Interstellar, the drums I originally recorded for it were a probably more syncopated version than the one we've got on the album. It was similar, but even more so. And Matt did a great mix down of it. But for me, I felt the drums detracted because there was too much there. And we agreed between us, and I was certainly definitely in favor of it. I wanted it stripping back a little bit because for me, even as a drummer, I found it distracting and it detracted from everything else. And I'm a massive believer that the drummer that the drummer has to serve the song.
Oh.
If the drummer's wanting to do something really complicated, if it doesn't serve the song, it shouldn't be there. So we stripped that one back. That was Interstellar. Another one was Motorway Bridge. And Matt first played it for me and Marcus. Straight away, the thing that came to mind is running up that hill, the drums. So I went into a practice rehearsal studio before we went to record, and I got the headphones on, and I was playing Running Up That Hill. So a couple of days later, me and Matt went and recorded it. And we did it. We record in John's house, and it's sort of 17th century, parts of it 17th century. So you get that resonance that you'd get that Led Zeppelin got on, when the levee breaks, there's a natural resonance. Tuned the toms up, and we played it, and Matt managed to record it really, really well. And then afterwards, I found out that Kate Bush, it was all programmed on a Linn drum. So I'd gone away. I thought that's really good. It sounds like you've got about a couple of people playing massive big toms and things like that. And it wasn't. It was on a Linn drum. But in the end, I got that's what I wanted. I was aiming for. So that song itself needed specific practice just for that song, for me to be able to play that.
I put an asterisk next to that song, Motorway Bridge. It is my favorite song on the album. The chorus is so beautiful. The guitar work, everything about it. It's a crown jewel.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
It nearly didn't make it. There were points where that song was nearly didn't make it onto the album. But it is the song that most people are saying is the favourite. People keep saying to, well, after all the album, that's my favourite. So yeah, so I'm so pleased we kept it in.
It's gorgeous. It's jaw-droppingly gorgeous. Wow, this is what it's about. As a musician, can you recognize its muscle? Can you recognize its beauty? Or do you still get critical and go, I wish we'd done this part differently?
No, I think with this album, if when I've sort of left it a few weeks and then gone back to it, it's almost like, have we done that? Is that? I almost feel like I'm listening in and I'm not in the band. So to me, that means we've done something good or done something well. When I'm actually very proud or like, wow, have we managed to do that?
So tell me, where's the growth and maturity that's taken place since the last in your work as musicians? Where do you feel like you've really like?
I think if you think about it, for us, obviously we had from like 1990 to 1993, we had those 3 years, then nothing. So we've been together longer now than when we were in the early 90s. So we've had to learn his craft from scratch again. So we basically just pressed pause when we were like, 19, 20, and then we just unreleased the pause button again in 2006, 16, 18. So we've had to learn his craft because we've not been practicing I've not done it. Matt didn't play guitar for all those years. I didn't do any singing or write lyrics for all those years. So if his craft is showing as though it's improving or getting more advanced, it's simply because we're a few years down the line then from 2016.
Chris?
I think it's just we've spent more time together. In the past, where we'd have 1 day to go and record, or 2 days to record 4 tracks, and it was very pressured, and it would be drums and bass being put down first. And if I myself or Richard made a mistake, we'd go again, and it was on analog tapes. Which I'm a massive fan of analog and tapes and vinyl, but it was more difficult to record. That tended to make you lean towards making things simpler than they could have been. So this way of doing it is there is a lot more space for us to do things. I'll go and spend an afternoon with Matt and we'll record 4 or 5 drum tracks in an afternoon, and then I might go back and revisit some of them. But it gives me time in the future to go, actually, I'm not happy with the drums on that, so can I go back? And it might be 4 months later. Whereas before, when we recorded the first 2 EPs, they were recorded over a matter of, a couple of days, and that was it. And it very, very, very much quite a tense atmosphere, whereas this is far more relaxed. We've got time to revisit songs. Some of these songs will have been producing. We've got different versions of some of these songs that aren't on the album and sound, different mixes. So I think it's time. I think we've got the time to do it.
And I think as well that now that it doesn't even come onto my radar to care what anyone thinks, as in, or be influenced or be even subconsciously be affected by what's going on in the music scene. We're just very much in our own bubble.
Yeah.
So, and I think without knowing it, we never even in the early 90s, I don't think we consciously thought we sounded like the scene of what was going on at the time. But I think you just pick up on it more when you were younger, whereas now we're just in his own little bubble, and we just play what we like rather than being influenced by anything else. So, and I think that's maybe makes it more interesting. And there's been sort of like a few comments of that we're in his own little time zone.
You put all these tracks together, right? And then you come up with the album title.
Yes.
So I'm sure you had a whole.
No, that was yeah. That was
Darkening Sky.
Yeah, it was very because of was such a democratic band. We went through hours and hours and days of messaging each other ideas for the album title, and I'd come with titles and think this is it, but then one member of the band has said no, I don't really like it, which meant none of us could like it. So we all 5 of us had to agree. So, but Darkening Sky, I think, just tie in nicely with Distant Lights, Things Lost, Darkening Sky. All 3 of them could mean different things. But, you could like Darkening Sky could just be a darkening sky, or it could mean something sinister, or it could mean something bad is about to happen. Or it could be interpreted in so many different ways, such as Distant Lights. It could just be distant lights on an horizon. Or it could mean, distant lights you want to reach there to be safe. I like the idea of it could be interpreted in different ways, and I feel like this is like this is a trilogy. These three, so
Right.
I think album 4 will probably come out with a completely different album cover. Chris does all the covers, paints all the covers. So all those 3 covers are canvases what Chris has painted and then taken a photograph of the sleeve. So I think we'll probably might come up with something completely different for album 4 and leave them 3 as a trilogy and come out with a completely different title. So that might be those 3 together. But again, I've not mentioned that to the rest of the band, but I don't know what you think, Chris. Seems to,
I've got my paintbrushes ready. It's going to be a trilogy of at least 4 albums. Halfway through album 4.
In terms of the cover or the artwork, do you want to talk more about that?
The first 2 albums, the first album was the first painting I ever did. And we were chatting one morning and I said, I'm going to do a painting. I'm going to do some painting. I bought some paints. I did it. And then later on, Marcus said, "What did you do any painting today?" So I showed them the painting and they went, "Let's have it as an album cover." It was like that. It was painted. I didn't paint it. I painted it of a childhood view, but not from any photograph. The second one was another painting I did just with a blank canvas with nothing in front of me. I just did it from imagination. The Darkening Sky is, I'm fascinated by Colonel Joe Kittinger, who set the world record for the parachute jumping in 1961 when he jumped from the edge of space. And I was always fascinated by, you hear the accounts and people say we weren't quite sure whether he was going to fall down to Earth. There was people thought he might have just carried on going up. So the cine cameras that were tethered to him, that painting is basically a still from one of those where it's so high up you can see the Earth as a sphere. So I painted that. Is, if you watch the video, you'll see snippets and you'll be able to hopefully see that was the shot I did. It's almost a landscape, a space landscape, because we are a couple of things that Suncharms, well, a few things I'd say the Suncharms are fascinated or obsessed with is travel, space, and 1960s horror films. And, those, we can't help ourselves. So, and I suppose the other, in terms of the trilogy, you've got the first album cover is basically land, the second one is sea, and the last one is aerospace.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really intentional like that, but it was just subconscious, I think, from five minds.
Yeah.
Love it.
And then when I look back at the lyrics, I didn't realize how often I mentioned some form of transport. Last tram and then midnight train and then boat.
Coat.
Coat was, that was a conscious decision.
An air raid shelter.
Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful third album. And where can people get this album, Marcus?
Yeah, so you can get it direct from Sunday Records. So that will be for vinyl and CD as well as like download. But then if you're in the UK, or I don't know if it's any cheaper if you're close to the UK as well, it's from Vinyl Exchange in Manchester. Where anyone who just basically Google or goes to the link for Vinyl Exchange Manchester, you can order straight from Vinyl Exchange, which is obviously better for the UK fans regarding the postage and such like. If you're in the US, then obviously Sunday Records in Chicago.
And then I got to follow that question up with any touring on the horizon, anything like that?
There's nothing planned, but if we do something, then it will be, I think it'll just be sort of like one-off gigs. It won't be like a tour. So if we do something, it will be sort of like selective.
Yeah.
One-off venues.
Is that just because of the finances, or is that because distance amongst band members? What's the reason for that?
I think we're just being sort of more focused on just the studio and the creative side of things, and that's sort of as imagination and as passion as just creating the music. So it's not been on the agenda, sort of playing live, but I certainly won't want to rule it out at all.
I would say because we've got Rich is on the other side of, it's about 40, in US terms, 40 miles is nothing. But for Rich to come up, for us to rehearse, to get prepped for a gig, the amount of time it takes would translate to several tracks for an album. And it's the fact that we can reach more people with an album. We're not a stadium rock band. So with it, it's getting those. I think we've enjoyed the recording of it so much. We just focus on saying there's Matt writes songs, so many fantastic songs that it's almost like we're trying to catch up with him to get our parts added to what he's done, and we don't want to lose them.
Right.
So there's that. It's keeping it with Matt really, and not losing what he does.
Well, and let's be honest here. I mean, you guys know this better than I do, but from what I've heard from musicians touring, of course it comes with some wonderful experiences and moments, but Jesus, I mean, it sounds brutal.
Can give you a brilliant example if you like.
Yeah.
And I think you'll like it. Yeah, is when one of the gigs we did in Norwich, Marcus. It was during the summer holidays, and Marcus was working in a steelworks. So in the summer holidays, he used to close the steelworks for a few weeks and clear out the equipment. So Marcus worked. Was it an 8-hour shift he did?
Sometimes 12-hour shift sometimes. Yeah.
So he'd work from something like.
It was just a summer job.
You'd work from something like 4:00 in the morning till 2:00 in the afternoon. We'd pick Marcus up. We drove 5 hours. We set up. We waited. We did the gig. We went on about midnight. We packed down again about 1:00, and we drove back. And we dropped Marcus off at the steelworks to do another shift.
In the morning.
He slept in the van on the way back. I mean, there was always 3 people sleeping in the van and 2 people trying to stay awake in the front of the van. But Marcus was like propped up in sleeping bag between the cymbals and the drums and amplifiers. And then I could just remember we dropped him off at the steelworks and I was ready to go home and go to sleep for 10 hours. And he was going to do another shift.
Marcus, you remember this? Yeah.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
Talk about taking one for the team there.
Yeah.
Damn.
It didn't even occur to me saying, "No, we can't do that gig."
But no, you would definitely not turn the gig down.
No way.
It's insane. I mean,
I do the same now.
When bands come to San Francisco and I get a chance to chat with them either before or after the show, I mean, they certainly love what they do, but man, there is a price to pay. It's tough. It's really tough. So I admire for all those bands, musicians out there listening to this, that you're giving a crack at it. Okay. I want to wrap up this conversation with a little bit of fun. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out some questions to you guys and just tell me what comes to the top of your head. Don't even think too much about it. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So let's go to the first one here. Chris, what's something people misunderstand about drummers?
They're the most important members of the band. I think they play an important part, but I think if the drumming's rock, you put the wrong drummer with the wrong band, you would definitely know about it.
Right.
You really would know about it.
Marcus, what advice would you give to new musicians?
Just be true to yourself. Don't ever follow like the fashions, because you will always sound outdated as soon as you release something. Don't be listening to what's going on around you. Just do your own thing. Ignore every bad review, because people will, if you stick to your guns, like people like the Pastels or the Fall, people come on to your way of thinking and they admire you for it. And you stand above everyone else if you don't follow what the rest of the crowd is doing. So that's what I would say. Don't worry about any kind of criticism. If you like it, just do it.
Sound advice. Chris, how do you feel about AI?
I'm daunted by it. I can see it's something for me. It's like the internet. It's powerful and has the ability to do great things. But I think along with that, you need to put in strict regulations to put in place how you use it.
Go on, Chris.
I think that there are many amazing ways that AI can be used to process data that for different, be time consuming for humans. So you could speed up processing, diagnosing illnesses, things like that would be great. In terms of creativity, I'm not aware of any AI that I've seen that I think is good. when I see AI pictures, I know that they are AI pictures. Maybe I've heard some AI music, but I probably wouldn't like it. So for me, yeah, I can't say I'm a fan. I've only ever seen it really used artistically to produce like daft memes.
I mean, it terrifies me that there's AI music out there and people are buying it and downloading it. Because I heard something the other day on the radio, and actually I said to my daughter, I quite like this. Who's this? And she went, this isn't real. And I was like, and that terrified me because I'd actually said, I quite like it. What was this? It's quite like this. And to know that it was completely just generated and there was no soul, nothing in it, and it had fooled me.
Yeah.
I found out.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when they did that whole thing. Was it last year? Was it Wonderwall? They did the AI on that, and people were like, "Oh my God, this sounds very close to Oasis, very close." But yeah,
I mean, where's it going to lead? I mean, it's like the old hologram ABBA, isn't it? What's been showing there? You're going to see the holograms of ABBA on stage, and and it's.
Marcus, last book you read?
Ooh, I'm just looking to my left now. I'm just seeing this Patrick Hamilton, Hangover Square. I would recommend that.
Why?
That was the last book I read. Yeah, you're just lost in the world. Is this character who is slightly unhinged, and it's a very, very twisted tale, but it's a very sort of historic piece.
An album that you feel does not get enough love or attention, and why? Chris, let's go to you first. An album that you feel does not get its recognition.
I've got it next to me, William. I brought it, Work and Non-Work by Broadcast. Yeah, so Work and Non-Work, I can't remember the year it was recorded in. I just think it's cinematic, but it's also elements of things like the Ipcress file, the 60s, cool 60s beats, the samples. You've got beautiful vocals, amazing lyrics. It's got that 60s feel, but it's slightly electronic, very, very, very atmospheric. The songs on there's some amazing songs. Message from Home. It's got a very, very special resonance for me. Come On, Let's Go. It's just a fantastic album. It's what I call a Friday evening album. You put it on. It's dark. You might have a little drink. You put that on, and you can listen to it at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday evening, and it takes you traveling through time. I'd say that one.
And remind the audience the name of the album again.
Yes, so it's Work and Non-Work by a British band called Broadcast. Highly recommended.
Some homework to do. Marcus, what are you recommending?
I would say The Razor Cuts, The World Keeps Turning.
Okay, tell me more.
Which is almost like a fusion of, the best way to describe it would be if Pete Shelley was singing for the Bird. It's got Pete Shelley style vocals with a 12-string guitar, with string, Hammond organ, takes you on lots of lyrical adventures of melancholy, and yeah, it's a wonderful album, but just it never gets the praise or mention or listed anywhere as a classic album.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah,
I really enjoy speaking with the two of you. And before we had this conversation, I'm like, I wonder how many times they're going to make me laugh.
Well, let's know. It's not recorded, so it's an excuse to meet up again.
Yeah.
My name is Hugh, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. And remember this, everyone. Great music is all around us. All you have to do is keep your ears open. Ciao.
Or should I say